Welcome to the Digital Divide Workshop. I hope everybody out there in virtual world is enjoying the conference today. I just wanted to start out by saying, as the world continues to progress toward a technology-driven and accessible system, the gap continues to grow for many who don't have the same access to resources that others have. The pandemic has highlighted a disparity in the use of technology that has been present prior to the pandemic, and especially for older adults and people with disabilities. It is estimated in California that about as many as 1/3 of people 60 and over don't have technological resources like having a device, having internet, or the knowledge of how to use them, leaving people unable to access important things like healthcare and maintaining social connections. Again, this is not a new issue, but has only become more apparent because of the current crisis, and this won't go away when all of this is over. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but today we have Cami, Ryan, and Brenda from 3 different organizations with amazing programs that help bridge the digital divide. Cami, would you like to get us started?
Absolutely, and thanks for having us. Cami Griffiths, I'm the executive director and co-founder of Community Tech Network. We're located in San Francisco, and we also have offices in Central Texas. And our mission is to transform lives through digital literacy. Ryan?
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. And I'd just like to thank the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers and C4A, as it really is an honor to be here with these amazing panelists. My name is Ryan Kawamoto, and I'm the Regional Director for Older Adults Technology Services from AARP, or OATS, where I run an on-site space in Palo Alto called Senior Planet at Avenidas. But with this pandemic, I've been overseeing all of our virtual Senior Planet programming across California. And Brenda?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Brenda Rusnak, and I am the Managing Director and co-founder of a nonprofit organization called Cyber Seniors Connecting Generations. And we run programs throughout North America and in other parts of the world as well. And our mission is to bridge the digital divide and connect generations through technology.
Excellent. Welcome to you all. Who can give us an overview of what the digital divide is?
I'll get us started. So I've been doing this work since 2003, and I started out as a volunteer computer instructor and kind of worked my way through, and it's just something that's very near and dear to my heart. So I want to help other people understand what it is and what we, and ultimately through this panel, we'll figure out what we can do to make a difference. But the definition, as Wiki says, is the gulf between those who have ready access to computers and the internet and those who do not. But it's not just about internet, because we're talking about fast, reliable internet. And it's not just about a device, because not every device works, nor do you necessarily have enough devices in your household for everyone. But also the digital divide is about lack of skills and people's ability to use the internet safely and independently. So think about the divide in that context, but also think about it as far as digital inclusion. It might be a term that you've heard before, but it really incorporates those 3 things: internet, device, and skills, as well as tech support, because we know these devices don't just keep working. So if you think about kind of big picture and what we're trying to accomplish, it's really about digital equity. That digital equity is the condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy. So I just really like the way that sounds, and that's what we're working towards, that it is a necessity for civic and cultural participation, employment, and lifelong learning. So hopefully that helps folks understand that it is not just about internet, because I think some internet service providers and folks doing infrastructure work think that the digital divide is just the internet.
Good point. Thank you, Cami. And then who is impacted by the digital divide, and in what ways, and in their community?
And Paul, yeah, I can answer that. And so there's a joke, right, that 7 out of 4 times numbers are wrong. and that you should never start out a presentation with a bunch of numbers, but I'm just going to do that right now, so please bear with me. But so who's impacted by the digital divide? The Santa Clara County Digital Inclusion Working Group just completed a draft white paper highlighting that 14.7% of California's 38 million residents are older adults, and that a 2017 Pew study showed that 25% of older adults 65 and older reported not using the internet at all. And according to a report that Oates just released, 42% of American older adults ages 65 and older, a total of 21.8 million people nationally, lack broadband access at home. In California, 36.4%, or approximately 2.13 million older adults, currently lack broadband access. So how does the digital divide impact older adults and people with disabilities? The effects of older adults and people with disabilities' limited access to technology are real and growing, and these issues have become front and center during this pandemic, as Paul had mentioned previously. Just to name a few impacts: loneliness, social isolation, limited ability to access essential services, including access to scheduling a vaccine appointment, access to your doctor via digital healthcare, access to online media that disseminates important news during emergencies, like the recent California fire evacuations, access to the delivery of food and medication, especially during a pandemic, which can be an ongoing challenge, especially for those who have hearing or vision loss, cognitive decline, limited mobility, or language barrier, and a limited ability to work remotely, if that is even an option, as again shown by this pandemic. And for any Star Wars fans out there, this is all to say that digital inclusion solutions need to be focused on JEDI, which is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I would add language in there as well, so it's kind of become JEDL, which doesn't sound as great, but just please remember JEDI.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. Those numbers are staggering.
Yeah.
And then why has adaptation of technology for older adults been historically difficult to implement?
Well, I think, change is difficult for all of us, and particularly for older adults who were not brought up in a tech world. And pre-COVID, we heard seniors tell us that they felt that technology was cold and impersonal. And they were fearful that using technology would prevent them from being active. So, a lot of seniors would say to me, oh, I don't want to be like that person. They're stuck behind their computer. I'd rather be out gardening and golfing because that's how I'm going to keep my body healthy. There's also a huge fear of failure. This is a population that hasn't been in the learning mode for many, many, many years. And it's daunting to go back and to try to learn a new skill and not really knowing if you're going to be able to learn that skill. So I think that all of those were barriers. COVID comes along, and I think that we can all agree that it actually did push the needle a little bit and nudge seniors towards using technology because it was a necessity for many of them. So, many of them still had that iPhone that was still in a box that, their kids had given them last Christmas that they hadn't bothered to open. And it's been very fortunate as well that a lot of seniors have had the opportunity to access free technology and Wi-Fi through COVID relief initiatives. So I think that, that's the positive side of it. And I think that we have an opportunity now to make sure that we do long-term adaptation right. Because what we have found is, again, pre-COVID, when we follow up with seniors who have taken a training program 6 months later, a significant number of them are no longer using technology. And the number one reason is because something went wrong. They couldn't get it to work. They didn't want to bother their family members, their kids. So they just simply put it off on a shelf and stopped using it. So I think that we really, really need to understand that seniors need to be able to access help, and they need to be able to access it when and in a way that they can access it. And I think that one of the biggest things that we came to realize during COVID is that, of course, seniors can't access online support help if they can't get online in the first place. And so we've gone back to the good old-fashioned landline telephone because that's the first step, and that's the That's the immediate reaction for an older adult when they're having trouble, is that's their, safety mode of communication. The other thing that I think that we have to really be aware of is we have to create relevance for older adults on the internet. So we have an obligation to make sure that we create online communities specifically for seniors. Telemedicine has come a long way. It was sitting on a shelf pre-COVID, all ready to go, but nobody was pulling the trigger on getting it moving forward. And I think that now we really have to rely on the medical community and insurance companies to make sure that telemedicine continues to progress, because that in itself will be reason for seniors to come online and to continue to hone their skills. And that's the only way that long-term adaptation will occur, if they're using it daily and they don't fall off.
Very good points, Brenda. This is going to take a village. Okay, so for each one of your organizations, how are you addressing the digital divide?
I'll get started. So Community Tech Network began as a nonprofit in 2008. And in 2010, the Department of Disability and Aging Services in San Francisco gave us a contract, and we've had that same contract since, to provide trainers in 20 different locations throughout the city, specifically for their computer center. So that was us training and supporting those trainers, some paid, some volunteer, that were distributed throughout the city and providing support in 5 or 6 languages. So that was prior to COVID. We were in these different locations: senior centers, libraries, housing development, social service agencies. And then after COVID, we really wanted to focus on providing the kind of support people needed in their homes, because the seniors that we were serving in the senior centers came there for food and activities, but also because they didn't have the internet at home. So we wanted to keep supporting them, as well as help those who already had connectivity but still needed more training. So we launched a program called Home Connect, where we took referrals from our partners. We would do intake and then ship a configured tablet with a booklet to the learner, help them sign up for internet, provide remote training in their language. And this is just in San Francisco because of our contract with the city. And to date, it started at the end of April last year, we've been able to distribute over 300 devices, and 226 seniors have gone through the 5 hours of training, which is all remote, which does start with a phone call, old school phone call, and then a screen share, which I might get to touch on later. But that we also are engaging volunteer digital coaches, is what we call them. So our hope for 2021 in San Francisco is to serve a total of 600 people. And the kind of breakdown of who we've served for Home Connect as far as languages, 59% are English speakers, 19% are Spanish speakers, 15% are Cantonese, and then there's a spattering of Tagalog and Russian and Mandarin. And the average age is 73. So I was really excited. I saw a graph my coworker shared that about 10% of our learners are over the age of 80, which is really great.
Wow.
I'm going to share some stories of some of our learners for this Home Connect program. So there's Renee, who's 73. She's been in San Francisco for nearly 50 years. And her quote to us was, "I'm really in love with my tablet. Seniors need to have a device and be educated on how to use it. I love Zoom. I use Google all the time. Just love to do research. Google is my set of encyclopedias, and my tablet is my Dick Tracy watch." And I literally had to look up Dick Tracy watch because I didn't know what it was. So I love that story. And then there's Manolo, who's 82, who was born in Mexico City. And he says, "I'm grateful for the tablet. It's much easier to see than my cell phone screen and does so much more. Although I have loved working with my trainers, I'm looking forward to becoming more confident so I don't have to ask for help. The less I have to rely on someone else, the happier I am." And then lastly, Rosario, who's native of El Salvador, says that my trainer is very kind and pleasant and very patient when she encourages me to try new things. I like to do things myself and figure them out. I never trusted myself that I wasn't going to mess something up and lose my privacy. I feel much more secure now. So I love this little peek into the lives of the people that we're serving and how the work that we're doing is making a difference. But beyond Home Connect, we're also providing group classes. So we have partners like the Center for Elders Independence who has worked with us to provide a small group, as in 2 or 3 or 4 people, to learn basic skills on Zoom. And on their end, they have someone who helps set up the device so that the learner can interact over Zoom. And we also have a partnership with SourceWise, who received a donation of the Google Home smart speakers. And so they're getting our help with developing videos and some training, group training sessions. So we're doing training videos. And the other thing that I really want to share that I'm so excited about is our work to help other nonprofits build their capacity to do this work. So what we've learned over the last year is something I'd like to share with others who are interested in doing something similar. So we can train trainers, access to our curriculum in 5 languages, and then our help with program management support. So we're already doing that with Engage in LA, and then the city of San Jose. So I could talk at length, but I know we have a limited time. So I'll pass it to the next speaker.
Thanks, Cami. So Older Adult Technology Services is a nonprofit that was founded over 16 years ago by our executive director, Tom Camber. Our mission is to empower older adults through technology, and our motto is aging with attitude. So our programming isn't focused on how you turn on and off an iPad, but more how do you use an iPad to access Google Docs to create a resume for a second career. In this pandemic, how do you order groceries online or do online banking safely? We provide over 40 to 60 free sessions each week, all accessible online via Zoom links on our website at seniorplanet.org. And the sessions range on topics from what is a podcast to how do you visit museum exhibits around the world virtually, and how do you use Venmo or PayPal. Our programming focuses on 5 impact areas: health and wellness, social engagement, creative expression, financial literacy, and advocacy. We also provide free one-on-one tech tutoring sessions with our own volunteers, staff, and a national partnership with Verizon employee volunteers. And you can register for an appointment for free using instructions on our website. We also have a free national hotline that you can call in between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. I'll give that number, but it's also on our website. It's 920-666-1959. Again, it's on our website, but you can ask any technology questions. And it's at the banner on our homepage. Some further background, OATS runs Senior Planet sites across the country, including a center in Manhattan, New York, rural upstate New York, in Washington, D.C., Denver, Colorado, San Antonio, Texas, and Palo Alto here in California. This past January, we became affiliated with AARP, which I've been told is the largest membership organization in the world, with over 38 million members nationally and 3 million members in California. And when I became regional director in April 2019, I flew out to our headquarters in New York to see our New York programming and meet with Tom. And I thought Tom was going to say, all right, Ryan, please purchase the equipment, hire the team, paint the walls in our new space. But instead, he asked me to channel my inner Margaret Mead and start investigating psychographics in the Bay Area. And I said, absolutely. And then I got on the Brooklyn subway and I asked Siri, who's Margaret Mead and what is a psychographic? And that's when I learned that Margaret Mead is a famous anthropologist. And whereas a demographic is race, age, gender, a psychographic is behavioral. Where does a person like to eat? Where do they like to shop? What activities do they like to do? And so after a relatively small sample size of about 30 interviews, 3 psychographics started to emerge of older adult technology users in Silicon Valley. And I need to add the disclaimer that these categories are a little bit of an overgeneralization, but this is what we found. The first psychographic are your adventurous tech risk takers. They're the former founders of tech companies that are now retired, but remain hungry to learn the latest technology trends. The second being cautious adopters. The majority of our participants that attend our programming that are feeling pressure to use technology to enhance their lives, whether it's learning FaceTime to talk to their family and friends, or using Google Calendar because they need to schedule their very busy and active lives, juggling hiking groups with their yoga classes and painting classes and volunteer work and spending time with their family. And then the third psychographic is technology traditionalists. Older adults who might be familiar with basic technology, but might be fearful of that technology, as Brenda mentioned previously. And some of these older adults are also just not using technology at all. And this fear is multifaceted: a fear of breaking the device, a fear of learning the device only to have that device become antiquated and needing to learn a new device, a fear of being humiliated in front of others in trying to learn that device. And so through this lens, we created our programming to meet the local needs of those three psychographics. So for example, in October 2019, we did a flyer. It was for an event, and we put Halloween should be scary, technology shouldn't be. And we offered a session on streaming and smart televisions, where the idea was when you go into Best Buy, there's going to be a lot of pressure, right? And so to come to our session first, where you can learn the vocabulary in a safe, pressure-free environment. So you can learn what is a HDMI hookup, what resolution should your television be? And we actually had one of our instructors take a picture of the back of her television so she could talk through the different hookups. But again, really focus on creating a safe space for older adults to come to ask any sort of questions so that they feel comfortable before they go into Best Buy. And for the Ventress Tech risk takers, we started a technology and innovation discussion group that's every Monday focused on recent tech topics in the news, where in a session discussing artificial intelligence, we literally had a retired Stanford professor participate and apologize for issues with the internet and artificial intelligence before we learned that he had actually helped to invent and create these technologies out of the Stanford Innovation Lab. A friend who's a curator of special projects at the San Jose Museum of Art attended one of our discussion groups, and she actually told me it was one of the most substantive and sophisticated programming she had ever experienced online. And for me, it was really rewarding that usually at the beginning of the discussion group, we'll ask people to introduce themselves and mention maybe something that they want out of the discussion group. And one of our participants explained that he had been attending some classes, but was really trying to figure out a way to engage socially. And those classes tend to be a one-way street, where here it was a two-way street. He was able to critically think, and he was really feeling a level of engagement that he wasn't being able to find in his other activities. So our programming is based on a social change model, where we not only work hard to combat social isolation and empower our older adult participants, but we really believe in combating ageism. So we try to provide the best technology for our participants. So in our space that unfortunately is temporarily closed due to the pandemic, we have 6 Apple televisions, 4 Oculuses with virtual reality, a Nintendo Switch, a PlayStation 4, 12 Chromebooks, 13 iPads, 12 ZenBooks. And it got to the point where my friends started questioning where I work, because they're like, how do you have access to all these video games? And for me, I was actually challenging them to say, well, why is it that video games are primarily targeted towards youth and not older adults? And so we're very, very fortunate to have a beautiful space in downtown Palo Alto that is funded and operated out of Avenidas, which is considered one of the gold standard organizations in the area, providing programming for older adults for over 50 years. And when they had their 50th anniversary just a couple of years ago, we actually had over 100 participants come through our space and try the National Geographic virtual reality app on our Oculuses. And it was really fun to see people jump when, you know, a tiger came up to them and sneezed, and just having to remind them that it's not real. So when our shelter-in-place ordinance, hit our region last March, our entire team converted all of our programming online within 3 weeks, and we ultimately focused on 3 areas: providing tech tutoring for older adults to get connected online, primarily over the phone and then on Zoom. We also then started offering how to use Zoom trainings that are continuing even this week, every Monday and Wednesday for the past year. And the idea is log into the first session on Monday, learn about Zoom, then spend Monday afternoon or Tuesday experimenting, hosting a meeting, and then come back on Wednesday if you have any questions. And then, of course, finally, our award-winning curriculum. And as I mentioned, our social engagement activities like our discussion groups. We actually have a short story discussion group where participants exclaim that the sessions have been one of the few things they look forward to in the week. And again, it's been really important for us to create an intimate experience in those sessions. So we actually cap enrollment, and we right now have a waiting list. Since last March, just again, some numbers, Senior Planet Avenidas has hosted 670 sessions over 990 hours, serving over 8,050 participants. And nationally, our sites have provided over 6,050 sessions over 5,500 hours, serving more than 182,000 participants in the past year. And I'm proud to say that we feel a little bit international now. We have some participants now from Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and Canada, in addition to our main 5 geographic regions. And some of the best feedback that I got just last week was, I get to learn something new every day at home in my pajamas. And so to recap, please visit seniorplanet.org. I can put the website in the chat. And of course, you can always feel free to email me. I'll put my email address in the chat as well, in addition to that hotline. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Speaking of international, Brenda gets to go next.
Yes. So Cyber Seniors has got a kind of an interesting history that I'll share with you. Back in 2009, I had a healthcare company that I had just sold, and I was heading for retirement, and my two youngest daughters had started a project in high school called Cyber Seniors. And they got the idea because their grandparents had recently learned to use the internet. And as my daughter said, had been stalking them on Facebook, and they weren't sure how they felt about that. So, but they started to realize that the internet really was bringing them closer to the grandparents, who they weren't seeing very often because they lived an hour away and they were busy teenagers. So they started a program. They gathered some kids from their high school to go to a local retirement home and start teaching seniors how to use the internet. My oldest daughter, who is a filmmaker, was asked one day to go and film some of the sessions for their school project. And she came home to me and she said, "Mom, this would make such an amazing documentary film. There's just beautiful, poignant moments. There's humor. And it's just really, really magical what I'm seeing." And so I agreed that I would produce the film, and she directed it. And for 2 years, we grew the Cyber Seniors program in the Toronto area, because that's where we were originally from, and taped sessions of seniors working with young people to learn the internet. And halfway through the competition, there was a lot of surprises, and I really encourage you to watch the documentary film. Halfway through, Shura, who was 89, decided that she wanted to do a YouTube video on how she makes grilled cheese sandwiches every day using an iron. And she became the talk of the nursing home, and we convinced everyone to enter into a YouTube competition. So we paired young people, a young person with an older person, and created this YouTube competition. The film did extremely well. It's been broadcast in 40 countries around the world, including on Netflix and PBS. And it has screened in over 500 communities around the world. And what started happening is that as we were screening the film, organizations were approaching us and saying, "Can you please share your model with us? If you've got material that you can share with us." So in 2015, we created a nonprofit organization called Cyber Seniors Connecting Generations. And the concept is really simple. We developed a training program to train young people. And it's not just for young people. Anybody that's tech savvy can take our training program. And our training program doesn't focus on teaching them technology. It teaches them to be good teachers and good mentors for an older population. So over the last 6 years, we've further developed that program. As a bare minimum, students have to watch 6 videos and take 6 quizzes after the videos and score an 80% in order to qualify as a Cyber Senior mentor. But there's also learning activities on the site that a lot of teachers, colleges, universities use as part of their school curriculum. So the Cyber Seniors Mentor Training Program is now being used by pharmacy departments, recreational therapy departments, because it really gives kids a skill set that they're going to need if they're going to be working with an adult population. So it's really focused on this intergenerational need with our Aging Tsunami. In addition to developing training material, we have developed over 1,200 teaching tools that reside on our website. So when students and trained mentors are teaching the seniors how to use technology, they can rely on those teaching tools, or seniors can go on and do self-led tutorials. So there's all kinds of information. And pre-COVID, our model was that we licensed our resources and worked with community partners who provided in-person Cyber Seniors programs. So these included libraries, senior centers, schools, places of worship. Anybody that wanted to run an in-person Cyber Seniors program could use our resources to train young people and then basically roll out the Cyber Seniors program. So when COVID hit, all in-person programs stopped. But fortunately, we had all of our resources already online. So we reached directly out to seniors and directly out to young people who were now looking for things to do. Teachers were looking for opportunities for young people to volunteer. So we were really, really successful in reaching both of those populations. And the first thing that we realized is that we needed to have a call center. We needed to have a phone number that seniors could phone because so many of them couldn't reach our website. So we invested in secure technology. We have a call center that answers calls in English, Spanish, and French. And seniors, we encourage our community partners to slip notices and flyers under the doors of seniors that are living in retirement homes, so that they don't have the burden of having to connect those seniors with us. The senior can simply pick up the phone and phone us. Second thing we did is that we created a plugin to our website that seniors can go to and sign up for one-on-one mentoring sessions. They can also phone us if they don't know how to go to our website, and we will book them a one-on-one mentoring session. And how it works is that all of those 5,000 volunteers that have taken our training program are required to fill out a profile and tell us what language they can offer services in. If they have any particular specialty in technology, you know, do they use Android versus Apple phones? And what hours they're available. And we are able to then run it through our scheduling system and match up a senior with a youth mentor. And all of those one-on-one sessions are done on a cloud-based secured platform. So the student logs in. They don't see the senior's phone number. The senior doesn't see their phone number. All calls are recorded, and we listen into the first 5 minutes of every call, mostly to make sure that they are on time, because when they're not on time, we hear about it very, very quickly. So the other service that we started offering directly to seniors is daily tech webinars. So we have daily tech webinars in English and in Spanish. And we also are now expanded to social programs, because we're trying to, as I addressed in my first question, we're trying to make sure that seniors have purpose for coming to the internet, that they have an online community that keeps bringing them back. So that's our free service. However, we do offer paid for services as well. So a lot of our partners want to develop specialty programs. And that's basically what our model looks like now. So we have created virtual cyber seniors programs on a number of different organizations' websites. We can give them their own unique 1-800 number and we answer it. We can give them a plug-in and we take care of setting up mentoring sessions in the background. And if they say to us, you know, we really want our seniors to be linked with young people in our community, then we can do that, because we can search on geography. And they can link to our website and link to all of our webinars, or we can create webinars that are specifically for them. The other thing that we've done a lot of this year is trained volunteers who can no longer do their volunteer work. So we've trained over 3,000 individuals that are foster grandparents. And so we train them specifically how to use their device to go into the school virtually and do reading programs with kids. And fortunately, we're also able to help all of those organizations that are giving away free devices for underserved populations. And so these are all individuals that have never used a device before. And we are able to train them virtually. Again, we start with the telephone and we walk them through the process of getting them online. And then once they're online, we do group sessions, but we also do individual mentoring sessions. So we do a group session and then we pair them up with a mentor to practice what they've learned until the next group session. The other thing that I think is really important to point out is that, oh, sorry, I forgot my train of thought. Anyways, we also tape all of our webinars. So if anybody misses a webinar, they can go back and listen to a missed webinar, and they can sort through our website to pick up on those webinars. So free service, I always say to everyone, there's two options. Our service is free. So if you don't have any budget, link to our website, link to our websites. I mean, to our individual webinars. But if you want something really specific, you have a specific need, you've got a budget for it, then we're happy to help. But we don't want to see any senior not be able to access our services because of funding restraints.
And I just wanted to share the link that I posted in the chat. We put a calendar together on our website so we could point our trainers to these free activities so that they could share that with their learners. And as much as we can, we're pointing to Senior Planet and to Cyber Senior. So thank you both for your free, those free activities.
Thank you for doing that, Cami. I do want to just give a plug for the Cyber Seniors video. If you haven't seen it, maybe Brenda can put a link into the chat for you to see, but I watched it before reaching out to Brenda, and I would say that I was a little starstruck knowing that I was going to be contacting a director of an award-winning film. It is extremely well done and really drives the point home of why this is so important. So
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I think that I have to say that we question often what's the most successful piece of our program. Is it really that we're training them in technology, or is it really that we're giving them a tool to bring communities back together and to create those intergenerational communities which unfortunately really have been affected by the digital divide?
Yes. Okay, that might be a good segue. Question for all of you. What are the benefits that being connected have on communities as a whole?
I'd say that there's also, in addition to what Brenda just said, an empathy for others that you wouldn't normally have. The phrase of walk a mile in a person's shoes, like, how do you really understand what someone's going through unless you see it firsthand or talk to that person firsthand? So that's what I love so much about the connections that we're making, both with our paid instructors and our volunteers, is that they get to connect with someone for either 5 hours or 12 hours. Like, that's a lot of interaction that they get to know people. And what we're seeing in our volunteers is that they stay in touch with their learner over time and kind of check in with them. And so we're kind of developing these really beautiful relationships. And I think it's strengthening the community in that way.
Yeah, and if I could share two stories. One is, I think the benefits are, access to support systems. So we learned just last year that there are very little technology programming in our local area, in the San Jose area, for low-income Mandarin and Vietnamese speaking older adults. So earlier this year, Cami had mentioned SourceWise. SourceWise actually funded us in partnership with Asian Americans for Community Involvement, or AKI, and the Avenues Chinese Community Center, where every week now we are providing technology curriculum in Mandarin. And then the following week, we do what we call an open lab, where participants can come back to ask questions and review the information from before. And then just last month, we started rolling out programming in Vietnamese. That's every week as well. Recently, with the increase in hate crimes against Asian and Pacific Islanders nationally, we were able to immediately provide resources and links to resources on how to report a hate crime and receive support if you've been a victim of a hate crime in our sessions to our participants. And that wasn't, planned. That was to say, wow, now we have access to a population that we didn't have access to before. And now we can use our sessions to connect them with any necessary resources or support systems. On that note, we also provide programming in Spanish and Russian as well. And a second story I wanted to share was recently I met with the faculty and primary care providers at Stanford University School of Medicine, where they actually asked if they could start prescribing our programming to their patients. And sure enough, a week later, I received an email from a patient saying that she was prescribed our programming and was interested in enrolling. And what they explained to me is that they're really observing and seeing that this pandemic hasn't just been about COVID-19 itself, but social isolation, right? Being cut off, not having access to systems that people have had access to before when, we weren't sheltering in place. And so I just wanted to mention that too. And my joke to, the medical school was always to say, we kind of have this motto internally at our organization that, if we have to cancel a session, at least we're not doing open heart surgery. But really the message from them to me was to say, what you are doing is creating a health impact, hopefully for the better. And I just really appreciate hearing that. And then I thank them for all the work they're really doing, where I really do believe they are doing open heart surgery and saving lives. But I just wanted to bring that up. So thanks.
Yeah, there's so many benefits. But before I get to the benefits, I remember what I forgot when I was talking earlier. I wanted to mention that the structure of our webinars is that we have one paid staff member overseeing every single webinar. But on the technology webinars, we assign the presentation to a student. So we give them the topic and they're required to research it, create a PowerPoint presentation. We work with them so that their presentation is good. But we also staff our webinars with at least 4 additional volunteers for every 20 seniors that we have on, because the presentation usually lasts 15 minutes, and then we go into breakout rooms for Q&A. And all of the students that are participating even in the Q&A piece are required to research the topic ahead of time so that they then are able to answer the questions. But going into the smaller breakout rooms, what we find again is that a lot of it's about technology and technology questions, but it's also that community. It's that ability to chat with other people online. So I think that structure has been very, very successful for us, as opposed to larger structures where everybody's just listening and taking notes and nobody has the opportunity or isn't too intimidated to ask questions and then just to have a general chat. But the benefits obviously of bridging the digital divide are, I think that the biggest one is addressing social isolation. Social isolation is a huge problem in our society. It comes with really significant health risks for older adults. And by bridging the digital divide, we have seen, because we do surveys for everybody that participates in our program, we have seen that it has a dramatic effect on feelings of connectedness and feelings of loneliness, for the better, obviously. The other thing, of course, is that we have an aging tsunami happening, and we've got unpaid caregivers that are totally stressed out. They're managing their careers, their own families, and then they got to take care of mom and dad. So I think that number one, by getting young people interested in careers that involve aging services and getting young people just comfortable being with older people is so important long-term for long-term planning purposes. The other thing is, and we've seen this through COVID, is that as older adults become more self-sufficient using the internet, it takes a tremendous load off of that unpaid caregiver. And, again, during COVID, what we saw was that, the family just, I can't come over and deliver you groceries, Mom. So let's get you into some program that's going to teach you how to order your groceries and have them delivered. And I think that is, there's been, it's been horrible dealing with COVID, obviously, and all the lives lost. But I think that it has made a humongous difference in not only making everybody realize how important it is to bridge the digital divide, but to actually move the needle forward, because seniors are now becoming more self-sufficient because they've had to.
And I want to echo the social isolation point, because that's the main driver behind our work, that to help someone get online isn't, you don't just do it to do it. It's for a reason. And so before COVID, the reason was to talk to their grandkids or to check their email. They could do that at the senior center or the library. But now when they're trapped at home, their phone call isn't sufficient. So getting that access to do the video chat, the look of amazement when folks get to see a video screen, it's pretty remarkable. They think it's science fiction to be able to see someone and talk to them live, especially if they're in other time zones. So the fact that we're helping, I don't want to say we're saving lives, but honestly, when you are so alone and we had one gentleman say, he said, "You saved my life," because he was just getting so depressed being home alone. And when he found out about our program, was able to get a tablet and training, it really made a huge difference. So I just can't emphasize enough how being connected, knowing how to use it independently, can be very transformational for an older adult who's stuck at home. And to have that access, that independence, it really helps someone age in place And as Brenda mentioned, take a load off of the caregivers, and so that they're not always having to do everything for them.
Yeah, that's great. And I think interwoven between all of the benefits that you guys talked about really spans the gamut of everything that we work with in older adults. Mental well-being, physical well-being, maintaining connections, keeping things relevant for people when they age. And the multi-generational connections is just so important. So thank you for raising us. So switching to the audience, what can the audience do to help impact this in our community?
I could talk at length, but I think just to start off with is to find your people. So if there is anyone doing similar work in your community, to talk to them, the library, any kind of adult education, any kind of senior center who might already have a computer center, and try to get some kind of group going. I call it a support group, but you could also call it a task force. I know that there's a lot of digital inclusion task force that are bubbling up, and that collectively you all know who's doing what, and that you all understand the need. So Ryan mentioned a white paper, which I'm very eager to see, that Santa Clara County did about their need. And like, it takes time to do this, but once you have it, you can really make an impact, because the policymakers want to see numbers. So if you can show that there's a need through surveys, then you might get that need turned into policy change that turns into funding. So once you have that understanding of the need, start talking to your funders. And I would like to think they all get it by now, that digital inclusion is important and people need access to the internet. But there's still this feeling of like, well, can't they just? No, they can't just. They need the internet at their home. They need a device. They need to know how to use it safely and independently. So talk to your funders about it. Talk to your policymakers about it. Talk to local businesses. They may have computers sitting around or other devices that they could donate. Get your volunteer corps ready to do some kind of support. If they don't feel comfortable training, maybe they could help configure devices or make some phone calls to find out what the need is. Get businesses to sponsor. And then really thinking about the ecosystem of your neighborhood or your county, which nonprofits are doing what, and can you hire them to help out? How can we work together so that we're not so siloed? And I'll pass it on to the next person.
Thanks, Cami. And piggyback on Cami's thoughts, I had three thoughts. One is Oats actually has a website, agingconnected.org. I can put it in the chat, where you can actually type in your zip code to find low-cost internet options in your area. And on the website, you can also download our recently released report on the digital divide that talks through numbers nationally. Oats just launched that initiative recently in support of the from the Humana Foundation. The second piece is I feel really blessed to be in Santa Clara County, where the Board of Supervisors actually approved creating a county digital inclusion working group, and SourceWise has actually been a part of that working group. We mobilized as a group of 55 community leaders, and in the past 6 months, we drafted a 30-page white paper on digital inclusion that I'll be sending to Cami hopefully very soon. We hosted 3 webinars, and there's a 4th upcoming webinar that Cami will actually be presenting. And we're actually meeting with all 5 county supervisors this week and next week to ask for $1.5 million in stimulus or CARES Act funding, specifically for digital inclusion initiatives for older adults. And I put my email in the chat, but if you have any questions and you want to do something similar in your county or in your area, I think the model that I can't take credit for, but our county has really been in charge of, I think it's been working phenomenally, and I'd love to provide any support and offer any advice on what we've been working through. And then the final piece is the Emergency Broadband Benefit, EBB. I think that's going to be a catchphrase that's going to be hopefully on a lot of people's minds, especially next week in a hopeful rollout. But it's an FCC program to help households struggling to pay for internet service during the pandemic. It provides a discount of up to $50 per month towards a broadband service for eligible households. And this is not just for older adults. And then on their website, they actually mentioned a $75 subsidy per month for households on tribal lands. And so I just wanted to mention those 3 ideas.
Yeah, and I'm just going to give you some really, really simple, basic things that I think communities, anybody in a community can do to impact the digital divide. First of all, every community has an untapped resource of tech experts, and those are young people. So, I encourage everyone to make sure that schools are aware of the opportunity for young people to participate in cyber seniors training or any other training program that's out there. I know that young people need volunteer hours to complete, depending on the state and the region, to complete high school diplomas. Universities, colleges are looking for curriculum, and there's a ready-made, untapped resource out there. The other thing that I think is really important is to encourage the medical community and insurers to continue moving forward with telemedicine, because I fear that once COVID's over, they will all find that it's just too much work to push, and it'll get shelved again. And I think it's such an important step that's been taken as a result of COVID, and it gives seniors a reason to go online. And remember, seniors are the largest consumers of healthcare, and by enabling them to be able to access information on healthcare makes them informed consumers, which ultimately saves money. I think it's really important as well to, as a community, to create opportunities for seniors online. Create a forum and make it senior friendly. Create a blog and invite seniors in your community to blog. Create a speaker's corner. There is so much knowledge and expertise out there, and seniors do not have a very good opportunity to share their thoughts and expertise on social media. And I think that that's a really important step. And I guess the other thing is that the last thing that I've harped on this is that we have to make support services available to seniors in a way that they can connect, and they can connect instantly. So, whether it's Cyber Seniors website that they can phone a toll-free number, or any other website or any other service out there, we can't abandon the landline. We need to be able to prominently feature a landline as a tech helpline where seniors can phone. I think we've all been on websites recently where you cannot find a phone number anywhere. And, it's frustrating for those of us that are tech savvy. Imagine if you have no ability to go onto the internet, or you're a first-time user of the internet and you're on a website and you just cannot figure out how to access service. So I think that we have to meet them where they are, and that will lead to success in bridging the digital divide.
And I'll also add that the Master Plan on Aging that California has created has 3 initiatives listed. It's a very dense document. I honed in on the digital divide, but it's initiative 81, 82, and 83. And 83 is specifically develop plan to launch digital literacy support for older adults and for providers. So hopefully, if the stimulus funding comes through and these initiatives can get funded, you'll see both more opportunities to engage your community, because another agency might be providing it, or your agency might want to provide it. And the thought of taking on a new program might seem like a really heavy lift, but now is the time, because you have more people who want to participate. You think a few years ago, they're like, no, like Brenda said earlier, no, it's not for me. But now these older adults are opting in. Like, get somebody who really wants to participate in anything as adult, they have to want to do it. So now is the time, I think, to start to build out within your agency digital inclusion. So understanding an intake where you're understanding their connectivity level. Do they have a screen larger than a phone that they can use? Do they have broadband, or are they working off the self-service on their phone? Do they have an email address? More importantly, do they actually know how to log into it? Because a lot of people say they have an email, but they've never logged in because someone created it for them. And do they have the skills to use it independently? So if you intake that information, then you can help them plan for getting into a class, or partnering them with a volunteer, or, and tie it into a food program, tie it into your exercise program. There's lots of creative ways to get someone online at home.
Very good. Thank you, guys. I just want to bring the attention to the chat for all of those who can see it. And one of the things that Christina posted was low-cost internet options that can be found at digitalaccessprojects.org. Extremely important asset for folks to be able to take advantage of. We are going to open it up to audience questions. I see that there are a few in there now. However, me being the moderator, I'm going to take advantage and ask the first question. Each of you talked about using volunteers, and Brenda, you mentioned one lure of getting schools and taking advantage of the requirement of projects that youth need to complete in order to graduate. What are some of the other tactics that each of you has used to draw in volunteers to participate?
I'll start. So retirees, there's a lot of folks who they were teachers, they were technical folks. They've got time on their hands, they want to contribute. So we have a lot of retirees. We have some gerontology students, which I love this because they care so deeply about the work. And the service learning, of course, is a great angle. Corporations have been really great that they have internal folks who can promote volunteerism, but it's kind of hard to get in with the right person, and because there's a lot of competition out there. But once you get in with a corporation and you kind of get a small team of people, they can word of mouth share with their coworkers, and then the added bonus of the dollar for doer money that some companies offer, either $10 to $25 an hour to the agency of their choice when they volunteer.
Okay, I can go next. Our volunteers are primarily focused on our tech tutoring sessions where we provide the one-on-one sessions. We have actually 2 sessions on Monday afternoons for Apple product users, and then another session on Tuesday, 3 sessions on Tuesday afternoon for Apple product users as well. We have 2 volunteers that have actually been providing tech tutoring for over, I think, 10 years collectively. And then on Friday, that's where I mentioned previously that we do have a national partnership with Verizon, where they have their staff who actually have, provide tech support for Verizon, where they provide, sessions for our participants. One thing to note too is that we actually have a very active membership model, or really I should say participant model, where a lot of our participants will sometimes run our workshops for us, will be our volunteers as well. And so recently we did a whole series on photography. With this pandemic, what are the best practices for taking pictures of wildflowers when you go hiking? And so that's how we primarily use volunteers, but I'm actually excited to attend Kami's session on volunteers that's upcoming. I just want to promote and plug that because I think it's going to be a wonderful session.
Yeah, we have so many, because we have so many young people that volunteer for us and then go on to work for us, because we try to hire from within. So we bring in a lot of students that have just finished completing college or university. They're looking for their first job. We do some paid internships sponsored by Best Buy Foundation, which is great. So there's always that goal to reach out to. But I think that for the most part, our approach has been, most of these students come to us because they need the hours, or they want a really good reference on their resume, or they want to build a portfolio. And we give them other opportunities to volunteer as well. Like we allow them to work with our social media team, with our graphics team. They can do editing. So there's not always just, direct one-on-one mentoring. But the thing that I think is surprising to all of them is how much fun it is. So we keep the sessions fun. We don't force anybody to do one-on-one sessions if they're not comfortable with it. Because a lot of young people, when they first start volunteering with us, they don't know, they're a bit awkward around older people. I'm going to be honest with you. And so, we bring them into our webinars and there's a group dynamic, and it's fun. I mean, there are some really incredible older people out there that are just a blast to be around. And so only when they're comfortable will we move them then to, one-on-one sessions. And some people just excel and they love older people. But if they're not comfortable with that, we don't make it. We don't force it. And we do a lot of volunteer appreciation events. And we make them intergenerational. In fact, on our website, our new website is launching on Monday. And on our website, one of the videos that we posted was from our volunteer appreciation event, in which Jean wrote the most incredible poem to all of the mentors that have helped her. So things like that just really, and when we were on the Zoom and she was reading this poem, if you could have seen the faces of, these 100 volunteers that were on the Zoom call, it was really, really heartwarming to see that they, had moved so far in the direction of really accepting older adults as, somebody that they can completely relate to, because I think a lot of them don't come to us at that level.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go to the questions coming in from the audience, and I'm going to combine a couple of these. First one is for Ryan. You bring many interesting points, such as the 3 psychographics geared towards seniors. Can you, I believe that's, say what they are again, and how has this assisted you? Also, do you have any articles or more info on this topic? And then the other person about the same topic was asked if you could share an image of it.
Well, unfortunately, yeah, we kind of collectively decided not to do visuals to keep the formal the presentation easier. But yeah, I'd be more happy to repeat the 3 psychographics. And again, these were just things that we had observed from our research. But the first group being adventurous tech risk takers. So again, those are the former staff in the tech sector that are really interested in the latest technology trends. So again, adventurous tech risk takers. The second group is the cautious adopters, where they tend to be participants that are really interested in learning technology because they're feeling the pressure to use that technology to connect with family and friends or to enhance their lives. So again, cautious adopters. And then the third psychographic is technology traditionalists. And those tend to be the individuals that aren't as familiar with technology or are fearful of the technology. And again, as I mentioned, the fear can sometimes be multifaceted. And so the way that these psychographics really helped us is thinking through a lens of how do we create programming that's relevant for our participants? And are we always providing programming for all 3 psychographics and where there's a need? And so again, for the third psychographic, where we start to really think through, there are going to be barriers for people wanting to come to our programming, right? We live in the Bay Area. It's already, rush hour traffic, parking can be a pain. And so how do we help to eliminate those barriers on top of the psychological impact of coming to a space you've never been to before, having to learn in front of other people that you don't know? And so I actually had a conversation very early on with one of our instructors about, we're really in a sector about hospitality. How do you really make people feel comfortable and welcomed and safe in a space? And that's become one of our top priorities for our programming. I hope that answers your question. I'd be more happy to elaborate more if there are other questions on that.
So I might have a question for Megan. If we supply some of this information to you, Megan, this is the staff working behind the scenes making this conference happen. Will you be able to get it out to the audience of those who have registered?
This is Megan. Yes, we can share any links and resources through the conference webpage, so we can upload those there.
Great. So Ryan,
thanks. Yeah, and that actually reminded me of the second question about, do we have any reports and information? What I can do is on our oats.org website, we actually have a link for all of our recent reports. I'll put that in the chat. But again, please feel free to call me, email me, and I'd be more happy to share further information as well.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. So I think this would be for all the panelists. Have any of you been using remote access to help control a learner's computer or let them control your screen? If so, how has this technology supported your programming?
We have been using 2 different tools specifically for our trainers who are probably on a computer and our learners who are on tablets. So the 2 tools are TeamViewer and AnyDesk. And so we'll call them up. The trainer will call the learner so that they can hear each other. And then there's a code that the learner gives the trainer that then gives them access. So there's no fear of someone getting into somebody's device without the learner knowing. And if it's on an Android, those two tools will allow remote access, which means you could just like move the mouse or point at something and you can execute certain things. But that same kind of functionality is not available on iPads. And it is really nice to have. As you can imagine, you're trying to get somebody to tap on something and they're tapping over here and you're like, no, over by that red button, and they're over here. So you could be going back and forth and it can get very frustrating, but we all have lots of patience in this field.
Brenda or Ryan, do you have the same?
Yeah, I can go. No, we don't ever we don't use technology that allows them to control their screen. We do educate them, though, that is a perfectly safe way to get computer assistance, because a lot of seniors are fearful of that, and so we will make recommendations to reputable companies. We use Twilio, which is cloud-based, and everything is recorded. What we do is we split screen. So we don't take over their computer, but we will have a split screen where the mentor has their computer set up with an identical image of the senior, and we just basically, takes a little bit longer, but our goal is to teach them anyways. And so we just don't really feel that we have the need to take over their screen unless we're actually fixing something for them. So instead of doing it for them, we just encourage the volunteers to take the time to just keep going over to that left corner, because that's the whole goal is to teach them, not to fix it for them.
Yeah, and sorry to echo Brenda. Yeah, same here. We don't usually do any remote kind of access through anyone's computer. And even when we're on site, our trainers, our instructors are trained to empower the older adult to really actively use it themselves. So we have a policy usually not to take over.
Yeah, we actually, part of our training program with young people is there's a whole video on troubleshooting and how to teach a senior how to troubleshoot, because that's a big part of it, is that they need to learn how to troubleshoot so that when they're working on their own and something happens, they can go through that logical list and understand, okay, so what could it be? Am I plugged in? Do I have power? Is my battery dead? So that's a kind of an important piece of becoming self-sufficient in using technology.
For sure, thank you. And then I think I clicked on the wrong one. Let's see. So is the tech hotline available for everyone, or is it mainly focused on the senior population? I think that's for you, Ryan.
Oh, sure. It is intended for older adults. I'll be honest, though, I know this is being recorded, but we don't verify, right, your age. And so, if you really do need some tech assistance, you can give it a call, but it really is meant for older adults. I should mention that NYCHA, which is the New York City Housing Authority, has provided OATS with funding to do the call center and provide that support. And that's why, if you notice, I mentioned it's East Coast hours. It's through that program.
And we don't discriminate either. I mean, we answer the line and help whoever is calling. I mean, in theory, you could have a non-senior phoning requiring tech help, but in general, that doesn't happen because younger people have other means of figuring things out. So we just don't see a lot of volume of non-seniors calling in.
Do you have anything to add, Cami?
No, I've tried to stay away from doing a hotline because of the fear of it taking up a lot of time. That we played around with it early on when COVID hit, that we had people calling us because they had either our staff members' phone numbers or they left a voicemail. And one staff member worked with an older gentleman on WeChat for a total of 3 hours before we realized, oh, we really need to have access to their screen to understand what was going on. It was really simple fix, but 3 hours wasn't something we could do on a regular basis. So we have not adopted that. I love that Oates is doing it, and I didn't realize that Cyber Seniors had it as well. So we'll be giving out your phone number. What languages do you guys serve?
We serve English, Spanish, and French, but what happens is that if there's somebody that requires a different language, because we have so many volunteer mentors from across North America, we basically, if it's going to be a longer call, we just simply book them a future one-on-one appointment. So in the language that they need. So somebody can phone and say, I need language in Russian, I need help in Russian, or my mother needs help in Russian, and this is the problem. And the operator will then go on and book that call on the spot. Or they can go to our website and book it as well. But if they phone in, then we will book it on our system.
Great.
Okay, and I have a note here that Freed would also like to answer this question live. Megan.
Sorry, Paul, that's me. I was just handling the Q&A section.
Oh, okay. Okay, last question, perfect timing. Is there any training for non-English low literacy clients, or have you had experience with this demographic in teaching them the technology?
We've had a very difficult time with anyone with low literacy, and especially if they're a non-English low literacy, if they can't read what you're providing, especially remotely, that it's really, really challenging. I know that there's literacy training online that's Spanish first. I can't remember it now, but I can think of it and share it back out again. But this is just a very difficult population of people to serve.
And that's an excellent question. We, as I mentioned before, are doing programming in Chinese and Vietnamese. I will be honest in saying though that it's a Zoom session, so there is a presentation, and we do ask people to log in. But I'll be honest that we haven't really received a lot of inquiries or feedback related to low literacy, and so I'll actually bring that up with our program team to talk about that. But I really appreciate the question.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, we try to accommodate all languages because we do have, a number of languages represented in our volunteer database. And we don't, in terms of group webinars, we offer them in Spanish and French and English, but no other language, but we always try to accommodate whatever language. And what we find is that in communities, there's usually pockets. So if it's, a community with, Japanese speaking population, then there's usually young people and older people in that group. And so, when we see a need within a community, we'll go after, both the students that probably come from those same families, so they would have that language skill. And that's kind of how we've been building our ability to accommodate different languages.
Thank you. And right on time, panelists. You did a wonderful job. Thank you for sharing all the wonderful things that you all do in your organizations. I'm going to reserve the last few seconds for Megan to give some instructions about how to get to the next workshop.
Great, thanks, Paul, and thank you to all our panelists again. So we're moving into our last set of workshops for this conference. They will start at 1:45, so we have a 15-minute break here. And workshop 5 is the 3 R's of AT: recycle, refurbish, and reuse. And workshop 6 is on AT smart home devices. So you'll want to go back to the conference lobby to navigate to those workshops. And then after the workshops, we'll be back in the main session that we all saw each other in this morning at 3:05 for our closing session with Sunny Wright McPeak from the California Emerging Technology Fund. So we hope to see you all there and that you've enjoyed the conference, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.